All right, yes. G'day. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this May edition of Learn with Google, where we're looking at unlocking the power of Google Classroom, and we're going to try and look at some advanced tips and tricks today. Google Classroom's not that complicated, so I don't know what you count as advanced or not, but we've got three amazing educators today joining us to sort of talk through some of the things that they do in their Google Classroom. So you're hearing it literally right from the people who are at the coalface. I'm just going to move to the next slide, Steve. I'll throw to you, my friend.
Nā, kia ora. Te mori ora, ina maunga whakahi ina Waituku Kiri, ki te tupuna tēnā koe tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome in, everyone. My name's Steve from over here in New Zealand, hence the welcome. So welcome in, and welcome to our cousins across the ditch as well. So, kia ora, everyone, welcome in.
All right, thank you, Steve. And on the other side of the ditch, of course, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we gather on, wherever it might be for you today, and honour their continuing connection to the land, water and skies, and recognise the Australian and Torres Strait Islander communities' strength and resilience in the face of colonisation. And moving on, so today your host will be myself. My name's Chris Betcher. I work for my own company called Crux Learning, but I used to be at Google with my friend Steve here. Steve, you can say g'day.
Kia ora, folks. Yeah, I'm Steve. I look after, what do I look after? New Zealand, and I'm looking after our friends over in Australia a bit as well. So I'm doing a bit of a both sides of the Tasman job. So yeah, been in Google 5 years, ex-geography and social studies teacher.
Yep, fantastic, awesome. All right, well today, so as I say, we're going to talk about unlocking the power of Google Classroom, and we have three amazing guest speakers to talk us through some of their ideas, and then we'll do the What's New with Google, which I've taken it upon myself, Steve, to now refer to as the changelog. So we're doing the changelog later, and there's quite a bit to talk about. There's a lot of new stuff. We didn't do an episode of this in April because of the Easter break, so we've actually got sort of 2 months to catch up on. There's a lot of really cool new stuff, and I only, well, when we do the changelog stuff, we only talk about the stuff that's actually available. So we're not talking hypotheticals. We're not talking about the stuff that's coming. It's stuff that you can get right now that has been released in the last 30 days or so. Everything we record, we're recording this today, and everything we record goes onto the YouTube channel where you can watch it back later and revise and revisit and share and all that sort of good stuff. It would be awesome if you do visit the YouTube channel, if you could give it a like and a subscribe, if that's your thing. It really does help the channel, as I hear people say constantly. All right, so unlocking the power of Google Classroom. Three amazing guests today. And just before I introduce them, I just want to give you this little graphic that I made yesterday. Based on something else I'd done a while back, which just looks at that normal workflow that you do in a school, you know, where you assign work to kids and then they do the work and then you give them some feedback and then they submit it and then you grade it and so on. So you think about that, that typical sort of teaching cycle that you tend to do over and over again. And what I was curious about was if you were to take all the features inside Google Classroom and then sort of overlay them on top of the things you normally do in a classroom, how that kind of fits in. And what's interesting to me is there are so many great tools inside Google Classroom that are just there to support regular teaching practice. And I've always found it interesting that, you know, I think a lot of people discovered Google Classroom during the pandemic. Whenever I ask people that, they go, oh yeah, I found about Classroom because, you know, we had to go to remote learning. But the thing about Classroom, it was released to the public at like 6 or 7 years prior to going into any sort of lockdown. 10 years, Steve? 10 years. So it was not
just turned 10 this year. Yeah, so 10 years old today. No, not today, but this year. This year was 10 years. Yeah.
This year, yeah.
Last year. Last year was 10 years. Last year was 10 years. So it's 11 now. My goodness, right. 2025, 11 in the future. Yeah.
So I think it was only like 6 or 7 years old when the pandemic struck. And what that means is it's not really designed as a pandemic tool, like it's great for it, but it's designed to support regular classroom practice. And I think that's really important to bear that in mind because, you know, I think sometimes people forget that. All right. I just wanted to add this one too, because if you have a Gemini license attached to your account, and I know most of you probably don't at this stage, and some of you might, I don't know. But what's really interesting is when I went into look at the Gemini education stuff in Google yesterday, there's a whole bunch of new stuff in there now. This is really expanding and growing, and we can talk a bit more about this because some of this stuff is in the new changelog. All right. I'm going to hand to our guests here, and we're going to hear from Martin first, then Rebekah, and then Ryan couldn't join us today, so he's recorded a short video for us, which I've put in. If we get time to play the video, I will. if we run short of time, it'll be in the recording and it'll be in the sort of the file we send out so people can watch it there. See how we go for time. Martin, my friend, I'm going to hand over to you.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you for that. I have put a couple of links in the chat there for people to join a Google Classroom, and it's important that you're using your @gmail.com account instead of your school one, because the chances are your school may have it locked down. So I'm going to preface everything I'm going to say with two sort of messages. The first message is, it is not whether we are using something like Google Classroom, it is how. And it is important that we're not just replicating what we've done in the past. We need to be doing much better, primarily because of the width of the bell curve of the kids we now have in our classrooms. So having one version of one text or one version of one activity and having post-mortem summative feedback at the end is clearly not working. That brings me on to my second
Hey, Martin, just switch to the screen you want to share, because we're seeing.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Where is the screen I want to share? It will be that one. Sorry, bit baffling. So the second message I have, which sort of underpins everything, is the work that I do every day with schools all over New Zealand is around breaking a very stubborn link that we have as a profession between the enhanced student outcomes we want and the extra workload that we don't want. So as long as we associate those two things, we really are in a lot of trouble, and that's going to be reflected in the outcomes for our kids. So just a few little things about using Google Classroom, and we'll work through a couple of little examples. It's great to see a few people having joined there. So first thing that I largely focus on are the three most important teaching strategies ever developed, which are scaffolding, differentiation, and feedback. And we know that these are aspects of a remedy to address many of the challenges we have in our schools, but we also, in the old paradigm, associate them with more work. So we need to be looking at all these fabulous tools that Chris and Steve are going to be sharing with you tonight, with a view to doing much better for our kids in the first instance and benefiting from reduced workload and stress in the second instance. That will be the byproduct. So number one, with regard to differentiating, I would hope that we are now using groups in Google Classroom so that you can have a blue group or a red group or a purple group or whatever, so that different versions of tasks can go to different kids. Another thing, just before we get into the example, and this is something I see very, very commonly in schools, I see teachers making an assignment and they would give it a title, and then they put all their instructions in here, knowing that it doesn't work. It doesn't work, firstly, because the kids don't want to read it, and secondly, because the kids are by default going to be working in a different tab. So what works much, much better is embedding the instructions into a document. So I started this about 15 minutes ago just to show that you can make something like this in 10 minutes with a rubric. So I'm going to show you a tiny little hack, and it's of benefit to people who've got MacBooks. So a lot of teachers want to regularly take screenshots. And so if I take a screenshot on my Mac here, I've set it up so that it goes into a folder called screenshots. And that folder is part of my Google Drive app that's built into my MacBook. So it means that it's immediately available when I go insert image in a Google Doc. So I don't have to upload and download. It's just going to grab it straight from my drive. Does that make sense? Just a little side story. Where I was is I just went to a great website called Pobble, and I grabbed bits and pieces of prompts and resources and pasted them into a Google Doc. And you can see that the instructions are in there. There's some referencing to the important bits. I've done some drop-down menus to get kids writing a bit more confidently and creatively. And possibly a wee bit differently, I've also added a rubric. I cannot emphasize how effective well-designed rubrics are for teaching and learning. It does involve many teachers reframing how we view rubrics, because traditionally they've been 10 by 10 grids we waste our weekends marking stuff on. These are rubrics that are child friendly, a maximum of 4 criteria. No more than that, because firstly it's overwhelmed, and secondly it doesn't all fit on the screen of a Chromebook. And I've designed the rubrics so it is focused on the things that I know that my kids are either developing in terms of skills, or that they just can't be bothered to do, like using full sentences or using the word because. And for many of those criteria, I make sure that they don't fall off a cliff if they don't get it perfect. So the idea, this is about formative assessment. So if some of you wouldn't mind opening that task and turning it in, just write your name in it or anything. Just open the document, write any old word in and click on turn in, and I'll just show you how quick it is to mark using a rubric. Hopefully we've got a few people onto that. And you can hear me okay, Chris? Excellent. Thank you. Someone can hear me? That's good.
No, you sound great. Sound great.
Okay, so someone's just handed their work in here. Fabulous. I'll just move this over here. Thank you here. Well done. Now, for those who haven't used rubrics before, they just appear over here on the right-hand side. So it means I can instantly see that she's used the word bank a bit. The quality of writing is quite good. That needs a bit more work. So this now boomerangs straight back to that student with a mark. And on her Chromebook, those boxes will light up. So instantly the child knows what their next steps are. They don't have to pull my codependent queue at my desk to wonder what that might be. This massively lifts achievement at the bottom end of my class and also at the top end. I've seen the most amazing shifts because of this, because feedback must be 3 things. It must be fast, fair, and it must be actioned. Another good use of a rubric is if the current climate of my kids is that they can't be bothered to act on feedback, well, guess what? I'm going to have a criteria here, which is acting on all, most, or some feedback, and giving them a stupid amount of marks if they act on all of it. I've been, maybe I'll just pause and see if there's any questions or wonderings there.
Do mine.
Okay, Chris. Here's another thing that people aren't always aware of. You can do a drop-down menu here and get your next kid, so you're not having lots of different tabs open. So what's Mr. Bitcher done? He's done some blah blah. Oh yeah, great. This is a big step forward for you, Chris. So he hasn't done terribly well in the word bank, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Quality of writing, and that's it, I'm afraid.
I didn't even spell blah correctly.
Oh no, Pearl Chris he really is quite lazy. But the thing is, Chris's mate Steve is quite a high achiever, and Chris is now a wee bit annoyed because Steve will have had 78%. So kids start to self-regulate themselves in a way that is progressing their learning and achievement because that feedback comes so quickly. Any questions on this sort of strategy? Because I'm going to show you a bigger aspect of strategy. And how many minutes have I got left, Chris?
Oh, I don't know, a couple.
Okay.
I do like the fact that the score that the rubric adds up to doesn't have to be the same as the score for the task, and in fact it will scale to that new number.
That's right.
Even though it's 13 out of 62, it's 20.97 out of 100 or whatever.
Yeah Good. Any other thoughts or questions there? So the thing is that a teacher can make something like this in less than 10 minutes, including the rubric. And of course, in a school, we can share these sort of things, and we can be co-teachers or visitors in each other's classrooms so that we can grab copies from colleagues so that we're not making everything ourselves. So in terms of strategy, I'm just going to show you a little document here. So with most of the schools that I work with, we try and codify what success looks like. So it's really, really clear. So with most of the schools I work with, in term 1, we have no devices, and we focus on routines, relationships, and most importantly, rotations. Most kids who've been to a primary school will have had 8 years experience of rotations in classrooms. And as our bell curves have got wider, the need for those rotations has grown. It often stops, though, at intermediate school, and definitely stops when they hit high school. So even with the high schools I work with, we get those rotations happening and those routines of learning happening in term 1 when the sun's shining and we don't need devices. And I'll give you you can have a copy of this. This is just an example of how we then reintroduce the devices in term 2. So we do rotations. So if I've got 27 kids, I'm only going to have 9 or 10 Chromebooks. I'm going to start with face-to-face time with my least capable kids so that they're fully primed for when it's their time to go on the Chromebooks, and my most capable kids go straight on the Chromebooks. So there's less screen time, higher expectations, way more work done, more quality time with the teacher, and the third activity is usually a self-directed finishing off some work or a revision activity. So the other thing here is we have a deliberate avoidance of consumption-based and open-ended creative digital activities as per the diagram below. So you are welcome to have a copy of this. I'll put it in the classroom because I've been talking an awful lot. And if anyone's got any thoughts or questions, I'm happy to answer them right now.
That's great.
Happy enough?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Martin.
Cool.
I agree with you. The rubrics thing, the whole the speed and scale of which you can mark with a rubric is it's amazing, and especially for that first pass through the feedback cycle.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing about feedback. It just reminded me. A lot of feedback that happens in classes is verbal, and the kids who attract the most feedback are the ones who are least able to retain that verbal feedback and the least motivated to act on it because they're often educationally depressed.
It's a really good
These
point.
strategies break those cycles and they get everyone into a much happier places. And we actually start getting some real value out of the devices rather than, at the S level of the SAMR model, the bottom run, which is often where we are using them as typewriters from the 1970s.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, mate. Much appreciated. That's awesome work.
Cool.
I'll let
you so much.
Hang around as long as you like and then go and catch a plane.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Chris. And thanks for all your time. And I hope there's a few little useful bits there for you. I am not at my best. I'm very tired. But thank you.
Good on you. Thanks, mate. I'm going to hand over to our next amazing presenter, and that is Rebekah Richter from South Australia. It is Adelaide, right?
Yeah, just an hour out of Adelaide.
Just Adelaide. It's down, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Calum Bend.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, just let me share.
I'll let you share your screen
My
and introduce yourself, and we're good.
All right. So, hi, my name's Rebekah Richter. I'm a Year 6 teacher at Townland Primary School. We're a relatively small school. We've only got 6 classes currently. But I thought I'd just get on and share with you how I'm using it in a primary setting. So this year I decided that because my class is going to be moving to high school next year, and I wanted to make the most of the grading features, I decided to put all my subjects that I teach, not including the NET subjects, into separate classrooms because I wanted to be seeing the grades. So I have had, also I wanted to be more transparent with the kids about what they were doing and how they were going. So a bit like Martin, I'm going to have to use some of your ideas about capital letters and full stops, I think, on my rubrics as well. So I'll go into my demo class. I've had a couple staff members act as my students on this, so thank you to them. So with the marking, so you go into your settings, you scroll down to the marking. So marking periods, I know you can do this in a lot of different ways. So I've gone with semesters. So this is the start of term 1 in South Australia, the end of term 2. This is just helpful for me for mid-year and end-of-year reports. But the cool thing is you can customize it however works for you and your site. The other thing that I'm testing out this year is marking scales. So in South Australia, we use A to E in a primary school. There isn't a hard and fast rule as percentages. There isn't a document that tells you percentages. I've just had to do a bit of a search and a bit of teacher judgment. But again, completely customizable. You can make that look however you want. You can have the levels be named whatever you want. Then there's the draft for missing assignments, not something I've really used at this stage. But then we go to mark calculations. There's a few options. I'm currently trying out the weighted by category. So I have 3 categories on the go. In this one, in my maths one, I have pre-test, post-test. It just depends on the subject. So with my assessment ones, I want that to be worth more, so I've put that at 90%. I still want their learning activities and their quizzes to be worth something because I want them to put in some effort. At this stage, I've put it at 5. I can change that anytime, and all my grades will adjust to suit.
Oh, that's interesting. Does it do it can't say that word, retrospectively?
Yeah.
So if you change the weighting after tasks are done, will it retrospectively adjust them?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's interesting.
We tried out, but yeah. Yeah. So if we go, the reason that you want to set all this up is if you go back into the marks. So here I've got some assignments I've used in other things. I've given them some grades. So here it calculates an average for the student and also an average for the class, which is quite useful when you go, oh, do I need to push them a little bit higher, or did I need to adjust to suit all my learners? So yeah, it will give you an average, which is really quite handy when you get to inform you for your mid-year and end-of-year reports and even for parent conferences. So I know Martin showed a little bit of the rubrics and assessment out of 100, being that it scales it. So this one here, let me just go back out to, my rubric is out of 25, but I choose to make the points for the assignment 100 just because I liked it to be a percentage. I have tried it with the Google Form quizzes. It does not work for those. So you can change your points for rubric assignments, but not for quiz assignments. So, yeah. So yes, like Martin, I'm using a lot more rubrics. With the help of AI, it is a heck of a lot easier to figure out those. Sorry, I'm just a few things I'll show. So if you go back here, marks, you can also filter by your marking period. So if you've done term by term or semester, you can see semester 1, semester 2. You can just look at the complete averages. So here you could have your mid grades, your end of year, but it's also an overall, which is quite handy.
The grade book's come a long way.
Yep. So the last thing I wanted to show you too is you don't have to have an assignment that is done on Google Classroom to add a grade. So I've got an example here. I've just put in oral presentation. There's nothing on it other than an assessment point. So that means when I go into marking, I can add the score in here. It gives the kids a record that shows them not on a piece of paper, but something that will stick with them. So that, yeah, and I particularly do this with maths because a lot of my maths assessment tasks are paper and pencil, but I'll put the scores in here so that they can see how they're going, and it adds it all up for me, which is really useful for report time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Rebekah, can I do a yes and on top of yours? One of the questions that I hear a lot from people is going, I use the Google Gradebook fine and it's great, but how do I get it out of that if I want to put it into another grading system? Can I get you to just click on the little gear wheel up in the top corner there? And, oh, sorry, that's class settings.
Yep.
No, sorry. Go back to your task in the classwork. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Now click on that gear wheel, and you get the option there to download those marks to a Google Sheet.
Yep.
Or a CSV file. So if you're using another marking system, and some schools do, they use Classroom's gradebook to like collect the marks on the fly, but then they often import those into a larger system to integrate with other things. And you can do that there. You just export everything out as a Google Sheet or as a CSV file. So you get that flexibility of working with all those grades.
Yep. Nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks. Rubrics seem to be the flavor today, so I am going to present my screen again. We had one more speaker today who could not be here, but he did record a video, and I'm just going to play the last couple of minutes of this video because it also talks about rubrics, but I think it's got another aspect of rubrics we haven't talked about yet. Yes, Martin?
Just a quick thing. When I introduce rubrics to teachers, they often immediately go and fill them up with surface features, and it's very demotivating for kids because although we might be doing literacy or writing or whatever, what we're actually teaching them is how to learn. What we're actually teaching them is how to act on feedback. What we're actually teaching them is thinking about my thinking. And when we focus on the creativity aspect of that and the work completion aspect of it, it builds that as a routine. And once the routine is secure, then we can obviously go off and do all sorts of other things. I forgot to clarify that earlier.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to play this, a little bit of this video from Ryan, because I think he makes an interesting point here about the way rubrics can be shared.
So hello, my name is Ryan. I am Director of Digital Education.
You hear that okay?
Education Directorate. Sorry, I can't be there with you today. I'm actually delivering a professional learning on a.
All right, I'm going to skip through.
And then lastly, we have this option, which is adding them and adding them. So you can just keep adding criteria. You can, now, you've probably seen it, maybe down here. You can see that you can create a rubric. And if you do that, you get this kind of screen here where you put in the criterion and the description and everything, and you can just keep adding them and adding them and adding them. So you can just keep adding criteria. You can,
only three, right?
No, thank you. You can reuse a rubric. So if you've already done one, just use it again. And then lastly, we have this option, which is import from sheets. Now, what's really cool is you can Google it. Like there's a whole bunch out there. There's tons. Most of them, a hot tip is to look at the videos for Google Classroom rubrics, and they'll be in the description. There's a lot of different ones to pick from. Some of the ones I wanted to show you, you can see that this one has, criteria title. It's got all these great colors and everything like that. Here's another example, and you can see they all kind of follow the same general vibe here. You can see this one has those first two things, and in this one, they're actually hidden, but they're still there as well. Again, just a quality of life thing. And essentially, these rubrics have to be formatted in a very specific way, otherwise Google Classroom might not pick up all the good stuff. Now, the one that I recommend and use with our teachers, it's called a rubric for extension, and you can see that I've basically popped in all of the criteria, the 2-point criteria, there's 4-point criteria. I've even linked some scoring notes and everything like that. So now in Google Classroom, all we have to do is import from Sheets. And then at the speed of the internet, we can, right there it is. And I want to add that rubric. And you're going to see that now I don't have to go in and type all this stuff. It's already in there. You can drag and move stuff around. You see, you can use scoring and ascending, descending, and everything like that. You can see the point total up here. But now all teachers need to do is enter in the criteria. That's it, because the marking criteria stays the same, but for what it's actually marking is the only thing that they now have to do. And when they're done, they just hit the word save. And there you can see it's attached. Again, if you can get a few rubrics, a skills rubric, a content rubric, if you can get a few good quality rubrics that are consistent and can be used across subject areas, that just makes it easier for students that are trying to navigate rubrics and which teacher does what. And it's also easier for teachers because they don't have to come up with one every single time. So if anything takes away from this, Google Classroom really supports that consistency, and consistency helps support teachers and students. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you to our wonderful three speakers today, Martin and Rebekah and Ryan. I think you all brought something really interesting, some different aspects. Interesting how you all, at some level, sort of were looking at the rubric aspect of things and from different angles, which I think I found really interesting. But thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to make a point. I've been back in the classroom doing some casual teaching, and I end up in a school that uses Google Classroom a lot. And as Steve Jobs once famously said, you're using it wrong, right? I go into the school and I'm just surprised at the way I'm seeing some teachers use it. The thing that's driving me crazy at the moment is when I see teachers, this is actually a snapshot from the school I'm in. I've covered up the names to protect the innocent. But like why would you put a Microsoft PowerPoint file in there, right? That makes no sense, because when you click on it and open it, this is what the kids see. They can't do anything with that, right? It's just like a screenshot thing. And then the kids have to click that open with button at the top there. And then, of course, it opens up in a Google slide deck or doc or whatever it is. But why put them through that extra process as the teacher? Use the Google tool to start with instead of putting the Microsoft one in and letting the kids do the work converting it. That makes no sense. So the other thing I've seen a lot of teachers doing is using the stream as a place to leave work rather than the classwork page. I don't quite understand the thinking there. The classwork page exists for a really specific reason of a place to put classwork. And then I open up these things and I find all the classwork is actually in the stream post. Yes, Martin?
I am so glad you're back in the classroom, Chris. Number one, because the kids are lucky to have you. And number two, you're seeing what I've been banging on about for years. The stuff I see in schools. Oh my God. I was saying to Chris today, to Steve, I said that when Henry Ford was asked why he didn't consult people when he built the Model T Ford, he said, if I'd asked people what they would have wanted, they would have asked for faster horses.
Yeah.
And what I see with the use of Google Classroom and other tools is people using them as faster horses, not as a transition and a transformational way of teaching.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Anyway, I just wanted to throw those couple of things in there because I've been kind of driving me crazy the last few days. Just a little couple of freebies I want to sort of throw your way, guys. I've been doing a couple of little projects for Google. This was one of them that I just finished up recently. It's a training series of videos on Read Along, which is a component with inside Google Classroom. If you've got the Plus edition of Workspace, which I know many of you do. It's 11 videos. They're about 2 minutes long each. They've got little cartoon characters that talk you through all the features and stuff. They're kind of fun. You're most welcome to go and grab them. It's just a YouTube playlist. So bit.ly/RA_training, or you can scan the QR code. Steve, can I ask you a favor? I'm gonna be throwing a few links at people in the next couple of slides. Good on you. Thanks, mate. Just drop them into the chat. That'd be great. So that's one little thing. And the other thing, because I had some time today, I made this. This is an infographic called 10 Tips for Using Google Classroom. And it's just 10 simple ideas for getting the most out of Google Classroom. And you can grab a copy of that as a PDF, print it out, put it on your classroom wall, or share it, or whatever you want to do with it. bit.ly/10 classroom tips, or scan the QR code. I
love how you use capital letters all the time, which is beautiful use of the English language, but massively frustrating when you're doing a Bitly.
Oops, sorry. Dane's left a comment in the chat there. I see he sees Classroom being used as nothing more than an announcement tool. Yes, 100% drives me crazy, Dane. It can do so much, and I see people just putting in, just announcements on the stream, or nothing but material links in the classwork page, not using the assignment workflows and the quizzes for workflows and all that sort of stuff that's really valuable. A lot of people seem to miss that. So yeah, totally agree. All right, time for the change log. We're just going to take you through some of the new things that have been announced in the last however long, about a month and a half, 2 months, on what's new with Google. And Steve, let's bounce back and forward off this one, because you obviously know these things really well.
Yeah, man, love it.
All right, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I mean, if this is one where if you have multiple people in the call, that's going to rearrange itself so it looks a bit better. So sometimes you'll go from the wide angle to the really narrow angle, depending on what you're looking at. And sometimes if you see two people in the same room, it'll actually split them into two separate tiles as well. So really interesting use of the real estate.
Yeah, it's really nice. And you guys are in a Meet call now, so you can probably see it. The way the tiles are all arranged on the screen is a little bit different to the way it used to be. And as people come in and out of the room or turn their cameras on or whatever, that'll all dynamically change and adapt. And it's just a much nicer experience. If you're in a call with just a couple of people, it'll put you vertically side by side so you can see each other rather than one big head and one little head. And it's just nice. It works really well. That's available to all editions of Workspace. There is a new sidebar in Google Slides to make making your presentations easier. You used to you used to have to, like, if you wanted an image, you'd go insert image from all that stuff. Now it's all in that little sidebar down the side there. It is still in the insert menu, so you can do it both ways. But if you've been paying attention, you might notice that that sidebar on the side there is very much the same as what's happening in Google Vids.
And that was just what I was about to say, Chris. Yep. Totally. Read my mind, man.
And if you've ever heard me talk about Google Vids, I draw a lot of parallels between Google Vids and Google Slides. Google Vids is really just Google Slides with a time factor on it. And other than that, it's really similar. So it's really nice to see them bringing some of those UI elements back from Vids into Slides. And I think we're going to probably see more of that to make the products even more consistent between each other. Again, available to all versions of Workspace. This is a bit of a nerdy one, but very important one nonetheless. Steve, you want to talk about this one, seeing you look so happy about it?
Oh, mate, this one is super important. I've been talking about Gemini for probably the last 9 months, and some of the stuff I'm seeing people sharing online, what they're using other AI tools for, things like taking a photo of my students and creating cartoons of them in non-data protected services, which means you're just giving a photo of your kids to an app that has no data protection. These are amazing. So Gemini and Notebook LM are now both core services, and a core service is Doc, Sheet, Slides, Classroom. So it's exactly the same as those. And both of them obviously have data protection in them in your domain. So because they are core services, the main thing is you own your data. Nothing goes anywhere. It is a super, super important point about Gen AI, especially with students.
It's a distinction that I don't think everyone appreciates, that there's Google has, of all the tools that Google produce, some fall into this bucket called core services and some are non-core services. So a non-core service might be something like YouTube or Google Maps or I don't know, AppSheet or something like that. Actually, AppSheet might be now. And the others fall into core services. And the core services, like Steve said, they have a different terms of service in terms of the privacy and where that data ends up and who has access to it, who manages it, who has control of it. If it's a core service, it's very much a much more protected state than a regular old app. I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
Correct.
Again, that's available to all versions of Workspace. This is a really cool one. If you've been using Notebook LM, and I know we've talked a bit about Notebook LM over the last couple of editions of this show, what they've now added is the ability to discover sources. So the idea with Notebook LM is you can take a bunch of sources on any particular topic, might be PDFs or documents or slides or even videos, whatever it might be, and you can upload it into Notebook LM and it will then use its AI magic to let you dig into those resources. What they've just introduced in Notebook LM is if you've started a topic, or even if you haven't started a topic, you can put a query in like that, what are you interested in? And it will go and find resources for you. So if you want to do a thing on, I don't know, the water table, but you haven't got the resources with you, it will go and find them and bring them in and then allow you to do its AI magic. The second thing that's really neat about this is, this is a different thing. It will now understand multimodal PDFs. So if you've got PDFs with diagrams or graphs or charts or whatever, it can now understand that stuff as well, not just the text in the PDF.
Mm. And this works really well as well, Chris. If you dropped in a PDF, say around ADHD and students, and you go discover, it'll find similar stuff about that. So you don't have to go and do your big Google search. You can just let Notebook LM go and find you related stuff. And it gives you an option, goes, yeah, that's good, that's good. No, not that one. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, really neat. So as I was making those read-along videos I mentioned earlier, literally the day I was making this particular one, I noticed another button that I found out later on was just released. So I did make it into the videos. You can now do silent reading. So you can set a reading task for students now that they can just read in their heads. Now, obviously, if they do that, then the AI assistant is not listening. Well, it's listening to them. No, it's not listening to them because they're not reading. But it will give comprehension questions. So the teacher will get the data back on any comprehension questions that might be in there, but they obviously won't get reading data because the kid's not reading. But you now have that choice. You can either do silent mode or read aloud mode.
and often really good, give it silent mode first, let the students read the book, listen to Dia, and flip it over to read aloud, and they've heard Dia read it, they familiarize themselves with the words, then jump into the read aloud for kind of the one that's going to collect data.
Yeah, cool. No worries. And again, just give that read along series a little plug, because I think that's it does unpack read along from beginning to end, including those videos. Also, don't just talk about how to use read along. They also talk about at the end, the last couple of videos, is how to use the data that you get from read along, how to actually interpret a lot of that data and make the most of it to, to put back into your teaching on the next round.
Rebekah makes a really good point there, Chris, saying that if they don't know a word, they can click on it and get that help. And I think that's really nice for enabling those kids that don't want to put their hand up and ask for help. I think Chris and I were those kids in class that would definitely ask for help, but we all know those quiet kids in class that wouldn't ask for help. Martin, being a shy, quiet.
And not only, Rebekah, not only if you click on the word, it'll read the word, but if you click on Dia, she'll read the whole sentence to you. Yeah, which is cool. Oh, this is the other thing that's now in Google Classroom in Read Along. You can upload your own content. So you can take your own story and put it in there. Now, when I was playing with this yesterday, I went over to Gemini and I said, Gemini, make me a story about a crocodile called Chris. And it made this little story, and I took that story and put it in here. Once you paste the story in here, it does take a while to process that story and make it usable. I guess there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in the back end in terms of the way the language model works in the background. But it can take anything up to an hour to process the book. So, prepare in advance. And I haven't heard anything because I'm not at Google anymore and Steve's not going to say anything, but I would imagine it's a fairly short hop from here to just generate the book directly inside Read Along rather than have to double hand it in Gemini and bring it in here. But that's just a total guess on my part.
Yeah, possibly. And and the thing about that, because people kind of ask about copyright and how much can I use, and can I drop some text in from a reader that is there already. And there is on the page about this, there is a kind of disclaimer around copyright. So don't obviously wholesale copy stuff out of a book and drop it in here and repost it as a book, because that's going against copyright. But the main thing here is when you drop something in here, you're not publishing it to all of Read Along, you're publishing it to your account. So it stays with you again.
Okay, good to know.
Yes, correct.
There's a new sidebar here in Google Slides, which we did sort of mention before, but what did I mention? There's some new things coming, and I must admit this has not arrived for me yet, but building blocks, stock images, templates are all coming to that sidebar as well. So building blocks, I'm really keen to see those, because it'll be like the building blocks inside Docs, where you can create sort of pre-built components. And it's a little, if you've used Google Vids and you go to add graphics in Vids and you've got those little graphics that are made up of lots of different components, that's kind of what a building block was going to be. You can sort of create an object made of multiple components and then store them as one component and drag that whole component out onto the main stage. So that's kind of big time saver. This is the other thing that you'll find in Notebook LM. Now, these are Gemini features that I'm starting to show you now. So if you don't have the Gemini license, you might not see some of these.
This one's in the free one, Chris.
This one's standard, yeah. But I think the language is the language one.
No, I think languages are as well. I'll definitely
languages as well. Okay, oh, that's good.
Double check, yeah.
Yeah, so now when you create some stuff inside Notebook LM, you have the option of generating a mind map. And so it'll just like what you can see on the screen there, it'll sort of take the whatever topic you give it and sort of map it out into some sort of information space to let you navigate through it and understand it. And if you then click on any of those headings, that will then generate a prompt to unpack that heading back in Notebook LM, and then it'll generate a response to that prompt. So it's creating its own prompts as it goes.
And you can also then, once you've done that, you can save that as a note. So if you're doing Lord of the Flies, themes, leadership, you click on leadership, it makes your note, you save it as a note, there's your resource.
Now, the other thing that is mentioned in here, and this blew me away, is that second point I put there about being able to choose your output language. Up in the top right corner in the settings for Notebook LM, you can go in and you can choose an output language. So now when you get it to analyze your documents and stuff, you can have it in whatever language you like. And it's like there's a ton of languages in there. Didn't have Esperanto, but it had a ton of other languages, right? And interestingly, it also generates the audio overviews in that external language as well. So like I uploaded a whole bunch of documents in English and then converted them to Brazilian Portuguese and then generated an audio overview, which was the two speakers speaking about that content in Brazilian Portuguese. And that blew my mind, like that it can generate the language like in audio version in another language like that. And my partner, who is Brazilian Portuguese, I said, how does this sound? And she says, it's perfect. Like she said, that sounds, all the pronunciation was spot on. So
I just checked that in my school account. So my educator account has the multiple languages.
Excellent. So it's not a Gemini specific thing.
No.
Amazing. The audio overviews, which are those podcasty style audio things that I was just referring to, they have also now come to the Gemini app. So they started their life inside Notebook LM, but you'll now find them inside the Gemini app as well. All you need to do is upload a document. So click on the little plus sign down the bottom, put a document into your main feed there in Gemini, and it'll say, would you like me to create an audio overview of this? It does take a few minutes to generate, but then it just lives right there inside the feed. And I think this is the last one to talk about. Gemini in Google Sheets is a whole lot smarter. And again, this is Gemini license stuff, this one. But if you've got the Gemini license available to you inside Workspace, then you can now do things like, highlight all the cells in a particular column that are over a certain value, or make me a pivot table that shows, blah, blah, blah. Like it'll do a whole bunch of really clever spreadsheety stuff, because let's face it, most of us are not great at spreadsheets. And it will now just do that with plain language queries. So that's a really great use of Gemini. Anything else to add, Mr. Steve?
No, man, I think you have got it. Yeah, those are the main ones I've got excited about. I actually got the new add your own content for read along on stage last week, and I got to admit, I let out a little squeal of delight when it finally arrived for me, because I've been waiting for it forever.
Fantastic. I've got a button here in Meet saying I can share these slides with everyone. So there you go. There is the link to the slides in case you'd like it. But we will actually make sure you all get the slides afterwards as well. In fact, the slides will go into allow anyone with the link to be a viewer. There you go. Share. Yeah, you'll get a copy of the slides anyway, but I'm just giving them to you. All right. That just about wraps us up. Oh, no, one more thing. Gemini in Google Classroom, if you have the Gemini license inside Google Classroom, you can now generate quizzes based on a specific text. And in fact, not only that, but let me just go over to my Google Classroom page here. This is what I'm talking about. Inside Classroom, if you've got the Gemini license, you get this extra button here that says Gemini Education, and you get all these little modules, and each module does a different thing. The thing, since we've been talking about rubrics all day, let's just have a look at that one. So if I go create a rubric, and I go, for year 6, I want, say, 4 performance levels, and then you give it the instructions, create a presentation on the water cycle, right? And obviously I should have a much better prompt than that. And I want it to show, what else do I want it to show? Show your spell correctly, right? You'd obviously put much more effort into those two things, but that's what it's just come up with. These are the suggested rubric criteria it's come up with. I'm going to go with that. So I'll say generate the rubric. And this is Gemini now inside Classroom having just generated that rubric for you. And you can see it's there. That's obviously way more stuff in there than I'd really like. I'd probably take some stuff out. But if you export that rubric, you can export that to Sheets, and then you get it in the correct format that Ryan was talking about earlier, where you can then, if I just go, there it is there, in this tab. So there's that there it is there, ready to import directly into Google Classroom. So I think a lot of this Gemini stuff that's appearing inside Classroom now really has the potential to streamline some of your workflows and save a lot of time. I was playing with this yesterday, and I made one of each of these things. So what's that? There's 13 things there, I think. I made 13 activities in 28 minutes. So
It's amazing.
it is kind of amazing. Yeah. So anyway, that's all there if you happen to have the Gemini license. All right. I think. Oh, I have more things in here than I thought. Custom video clips in Google Vids. Again, if you've got the Gemini license now, you can go into Google Vids and you can say, make me a video of a 12-headed centipede destroying a city in a post-dystopian world, and it'll generate that video clip for you, and it'll generate 8-second clips. I've had a little play with it. Like, the quality is amazing, and that's available now inside Gemini. And what was this one? Oh yeah. Also in Vids, again, if you've got the Gemini license now, you can take a document and upload a document into Vids and say, make a video of this document, and it'll just spit something out. Again, I've done some little testing with this. Super impressed with what it's done. Quite surprising, actually, how good it is at turning your documents and things into video clips. And not just clips, but whole videos. There you go. That really is the end. As I mentioned before, we do record all these webinars. We're just a couple of minutes over time on this one, so my apologies for that. There was a lot to pack in. We'll take this and put it into the YouTube channel. You can get it on that address there, bit.ly/LWG_rewatch, or scan the QR code. And if you like any of the content that's there, please give it a thumbs up. It's really nice to get those. If you'd like a PD certificate for attending today, scan that code, fill in the form, and it will generate a certificate for you to say you've spent an hour or so of your time doing some PD this afternoon. If that's the sort of thing you'd like, it is right there. And finally, if you've enjoyed today, if you've got anything out of it, or you had even if you didn't enjoy it, if you've got any feedback at all, we really would appreciate just if you could scan that code and just take 30 seconds just to please give us some feedback on this. We do track that from month to month, and it's really valuable to collect that sort of that feedback stuff. I think that's it.
It's been a lot, man. And people have said to me, what's been going on? I'm like, a lot.
A lot. There
has been a lot of stuff.
Has been a lot. There's a lot of really cool AI stuff coming down the pipe, but I was super pleased to see that there's still a lot of stuff being pumped into the other versions as well that don't necessarily require the Gemini add-on. There's lots of stuff happening everywhere. I'm going to stop the recording. I see someone has their hand up, but I'm just going to stop the recording, and we can just hang around afterwards and answer some questions. But thank you everyone for coming today. It's been great. And thank you for Rebekah, and to Martin, and to Ryan, and to you, of course, Steve, as always.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll see you guys next month.
Sure. Ka kite.
Thanks.